Hey everyone, with all the restoration work done on this Lowrider, no attention was made to the front suspension, and that became readily apparent during clutch testing when one fork seal blew out, followed by the other one a short time later. I didn't notice I was covered with oil. What I noticed was when I hit the front brakes, the whole bike sunk down forwards. So our last video started with the cleaning and inspection of this fork tube, then it was reassembled with minor differences from the last tube. I did find out that with regard to the dust seal, having the metal cap over it helps things a lot, and there is no problem with the actual dust seal. Finishing these up, I moved on to this thread, prepped for inspection to see if it's good, and tested against the newly arrived nut. I went and made another trip to Ace, where I then cleaned up this area of all the rust, inserted the racing cups that went in way too easy, so I ended up repairing the mating surfaces on both sides to accommodate, which allowed me to drive everything in correctly with our custom tool, grease the bearings, at which point both bearings were installed, the reassembly of the front end commenced, repairs were done to the handlebar mating surface while I was here, allowing the handlebars to be set back up, all pieces reconnected, fork tubes reinstalled, the front brakes were then removed, followed by the installation of these terrible end caps, where they were then rotated to align with the headlight, finishing the top end portion of the front end. We continue with the fender and several parts loaded into the car as we make our way back to Ace. We're going to start with all new 5/16 grade 8 hardware for the axle caps. I then need to match this up for the fender, just establishing the sizes I need with the fender on the shelf. I think we have everything we need at this point. I'll tie everything down and we'll head back to the house. Making our way back to the bike, we could stop and do a quick inspection of the work thus far. It's important that the dust caps seat squarely, that they're centered, they're not hanging off the side. We can see on the bottom one sits on the inside. It's a smaller cap, and that's seated correctly as well. I think this portion really came out nice. I think the repairs will hold. I'm very happy with it. But everything here is covered in oil, anti-seize, and dirt now. I'm going to have to clean this up before I continue. Here I have my mount for the speedometer cable along with all the pieces that I purchased that are now screwed down onto the fender. Removing them will see that I'm going to have to elongate that hole just a fraction of a millimeter, which I've done so I could place it on and there's no slop. The fender will go in the same way that I took it out. I've got the shocks turned outward so the fender can slide up without being impinged. Bringing it all the way up past the mounts. I'm now able to turn them around. The slight tension kind of holds the fender in place, so I don't worry about it falling. I do things a bit differently here given my tire, which is deflated so that I could slide it through. New axle cap hardware has been purchased in 8/8, so we'll be using that. Then the axle cap is installed using the new mounting hardware. Not tightened down though, the axle caps are left loose. Same thing on the other side. Take a minute to clean out any dust or dirt over here on the speedometer pickup. At which point I'll apply some fresh grease right here to the inner portion. And make sure that grease is evenly spread off camera. It has to be done off camera, it's very important. Aligning the detent in the speedometer pickup, it is then placed in the side of the wheel, should drop right in. Next comes the exercise of lowering this bike to the correct height. So I'm going to be dropping it down, eyeballing it as I turn the jack. And I know I'm not going to get it right the first time, so it's going to take a couple of tries. But eventually I feel I'm close enough to push the axle through. I have cleaned and greased this axle. But the tire's not tight, so I have to move stuff around to get it to go through. And eventually it does. Still got to adjust to get it through the other side just a hair. And be sure not to get that final last push on film, because that would have been helpful. And we can see it spins, but I definitely have to drop that tire to the ground before I start tightening, or that axle's not going to be aligned. But first, just because this is my bike, I got to get those fender bolts in and tighten them all down. Having lowered the bike, I can now place the washer, followed by the lock washer, and then the axle nut onto the end of the axle, and I'll just hand tighten the slack out of that. We're at 50 foot-pounds using a 15/16, and we're just going to torque this down now. That'll do it. These nuts will be secured at 132 inch-pounds, but what I'm going to do is just tighten them progressively so it turns up evenly as it clamps down. A couple back and forth turns on each one until we finally get a click. Yeah, the click shouldn't be far behind. I do the same thing again on the other side. We're going to jack up the wheel now that it's torqued down. The neck bearing preload should look just like this. Let's spin the tire and see what we got. I'm looking from different angles to see how true it is. Speeding it up at 20 times the speed. It runs forever. The bearings are good. They're not loose. And I don't see any wiggle. So now we'll attach the speedometer cable, which fits very nice here. All the hardware that I'd purchased to shore that up. And I'm tightening up a screw, but in the future I'm going to make a stud out of an egg core nut, which would be more appropriate for this Fender, but that looks really nice. I just need to grommet. This bolt here sets the preload and the pinch bolt locks it down. I previously just tightened it by hand, but as we saw, looking at this setup, the preload is absolutely perfect. I don't want to change anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen the pinch bolt just so I could then torque it down correctly. Okay, I believe that should be sufficiently loose now. And setting up for about 23 foot-pounds or so. We'll just tighten it back down so we know we're at the proper setting. And there we go, all set up. In the first video I said I'd be doing something about this screw, and this one didn't even have one. They're kind of old and chewed up, so I was going to replace them. I went and ordered a set. So I'm just going to go and install them now. I'm sure the old ones worked, but this is cosmetically nicer. And it doesn't use a Phillips, it uses hex, so it torques down nicer. While at the same time, I like the way that falls. While at the same time, I really wanted to put something in those holes up top, and since it's a set of 4, it worked out really nice. Yeah, that looks a lot better. Same thing on the other side. I swear these brakes just got all new seals and pistons. I can't imagine what happened. Let's look at the archive. I don't see any problems with this piston, so we're going to reuse it. We're going to replace the seal, however. Okay, so I am running an original piston. It could be part of the problem. But if we look at this one right here, this one actually did not leak at all. That's some residual paint from the inside on there, but that's not anything with regard to any oil leaking out of the piston. This thing's actually perfect. It doesn't need anything but a cleaning. So we'll clean it and put some anti-seize on the outside of the pads and on the sliders, and that's it. I didn't show it. I got enough content with the next brake, so I just installed this one in its entirety, but it looks good. Let's move on. And I've covered this in a previous video, link in the top right corner. This is a standard tear down, cleaning, and rebuild of the front caliper. This time, obviously with a new piston. All parts not connected to the piston are clean. Clean up the piston side before I try and open it, and then with compressed air, I'll carefully knock that piston out. I do see some areas of wear. I don't see any like major gouges or rust or anything like that, but there are some areas of wear. Maybe it leaked. The old seals will obviously be replaced too. This one pulled out with a dull pick that I use for this purpose. And checking this seal, I don't see any damage on the inside that might cause it to leak. The inner race is unobstructed, something that might cause the seal to deform slightly. Having cleaned everything, I'll start the rebuild. All surfaces on the inside completely coated with .5, including the oil seal. The seal's installed and again coated with oil. I've purchased a replacement piston, which I'll coat with oil. Then having coated the dust seal with oil, I will install that into the caliper, getting it on that inside groove, followed by the piston that I will press in through the dust seal until it's fully seated, gently pressing it in. Ideally, getting it just low enough that that ridge on the piston grabs onto the inside portion of that dust seal. Always get it a little bit too low as I press it all the way in. So a very gentle application of air from a couple millimeters away raises it up just slightly high enough to be able to check and make sure that that dust seal is seated. I go around with my finger to ensure that it's even. And then when I'm confident, I press it all the way back in. And this piston's done. Applying anti-seize to the mating surfaces of those outside faces of the pads, I'm then able to assemble it. That means pulling the pins one at a time to get them as well. Line up the back, and then I'll run that bolt through. Chalked up in the vise, I'll remove the slack, setting my torque wrench to about 47 foot-pounds. We'll lock it down. Wipe everything down, and we're ready to install. I know I shouldn't reuse these bolts and studs, but I used Loctite on the back of them. I get away with that, never had a problem, but I'll put some anti-seize on the stud, placing it into position. I'll support the top really quickly with one of them while I screw in the bottom. Then I'll pull the top one so I can put anti-seize on it. This one I'm able to hold the nut in the back while I put the top one in, so it's a little easier. And I'm just snugging these down to remove the slack. I'm not torquing them down just yet, because once they're both in, at 132 inch-pounds, I'll lock both of them down. All that's left now is to reconnect my brake line, making sure the curvature spins outward before I snug it down. I'll fasten it down with an open-ended spanner. Give everything here a once over. And it's time to lower the front wheel. Now as I lower it, I'm pulling the bar in my direction or it's going to land right on my Yamaha. But eventually it falls down on the kickstand where it's safe. And get that jack out from under there. Pulling off the cover reveals what looks like a completed bike. I haven't set up the handlebars yet. I'll do that when I sit on it. This reservoir's next, because I can't test this suspension unless I could use the brakes. So we're going to fill it up now. This system is .5. My .5 has a nice purple color to it. I just want to gently touch the handle a little bit just to lubricate the system up top. Nothing crazy here. That's good. But things went south from here because this bleeder got stuck in the brake. Nothing I did loosened that thing up. So I had to take the brake back out, put it on the vise, and I was able to remove the bleeder. So now I'm stuck with a piece of masking tape on here till I hit the store. I was able to pick one up at my local auto parts store of the same dimension. A little bit taller than the last one, but not too tall, so I'm able to screw it in without any problem. Getting the hose around it and preparing to vacuum the oil through, I haven't yet realized that this has a check valve on it. So I fill up my reservoir, and I should be turning this a quarter turn and pumping the brakes from the top in order to flush it. Not with the vacuum, it's just not going to work right with this. The other side uses the vacuum, so this is like not ideal, but I was still able to bleed the brakes using two different methods, tie everything down. Almost fairly confident now that this time we're actually done. So we'll clean everything up with a rag. I'm going to have to wash the bike to be truly sure that all the oil's gone to check for leaks, but for now, good enough. Dropping on the dust caps on both sides. I'm hoping that this is the last trouble I have from this brake caliper right here. But now I'm sitting on the seat of the bike, loosening the handlebars so I could set them up for their final correct fitment. Just like this should be fine. And I lock everything down. Having retextured the surface areas, I'm hoping that the handlebars will now stay, or else I'm going to need new risers. And that's it. It's done. Finally able to hold the brakes and test the front suspension, and it is nice and solid as compared to the mush that it was before. Time to get this bike on the road for the final test. Let's see how we do after sitting up for a couple months. First I'll pull up the choke because it's winter time here. Then I'll turn on the fuel valve and wait a minute. Then I'll give it a couple of squirts of the accelerator pump. Now while holding the brake, I'll give it the first prime kick. The ignition is off. There's one. And then I'm going to give it another one. There's a second prime kick. Now I'm going to lean down, turn on the ignition. Now the switch is still off, even though the key is on, so it's still safe. I want to check one more time, make sure that the choke is all the way up. And I'm going to put my foot back on the pedal, holding the brake, check that the pedal and piston is in the most ideal starting position, and hit the switch. Didn't sound too happy, but it did fire off on the first kick and didn't dump a whole bunch of oil on the ground, so my repair on the oil pump worked. Some people say an oil pressure gauge is useless. I don't listen to those people. We can see that the pressure is dropping as it heats up, letting me know that around now is a good safe time to ride the bike. Unfortunately, the length of the extension on that camera is causing shaking even when the bike isn't shaking. I had it really overextended to get a good look at the shocks. Riding on a perfectly paved road isn't going to do me any favors anyway, trying to see how the shocks are going to function, even as I zoom in. So I need to find a side road with worse roads and go slower on it. And the handling is a night and day difference from before. You just can't see it on camera. The bike is no longer loose and sloppy. It doesn't sink down when I hit the front brakes. Large bumps like this one right here were absorbed sufficiently. And the overall ride and handling feels more like a modern bike, especially on the negotiation of the turns and slowing down in the corners. Very happy with the way this front end came out. As I turn into my driveway, I shut off the ignition and roll all the way up to the garage because I want to check my plugs later and see how they're doing, and I don't want to idle. But this project is over. And that concludes this 4-part series on the front end rebuild of this AMF Lowrider. I hope you found this video enjoyable, entertaining, and informative. Do me a favor, hit that like button down below, helps me out a lot when you do, and hit that subscribe button for more videos like this when they come out. Again, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching. Would you like to reply?